Well, I feel like I need to. I have the need for like robotic music. I don't know. I've had this theme music for so long. Wait a minute, Jessica. You won't believe this. This is the corniest thing, but I'm doing it now. My wife has had to deal with this for years, but
This is my new toy. So, welcome, Jessica. Count yourself lucky. I am not going to do the whole podcast in this voice.
Oh, yes, please.
I've never ever had to use that, and I thought, you know what?
Today's the day.
You just can't take the boy out of me. You just can't.
Well, let me tell you something that happened the other day to me. I was on a call on Zoom call, right, with a client, and I don't know what happened with Zoom, but suddenly turned my voice into robot, and I was like, "Oh my god, for real? I'm turning into robot." I
It
didn't
really
click
did.
anything. I swear to God. So it was a funny moment. I don't know. It was for a minute or two, but
Probably funnier because you really didn't try to, and I was just being a corn dog, and yeah. You and I have been trying to get together for at least maybe 2.5 months. I am so glad that we finally have figured out our schedules, and life has, given us a little bit of a window here
yeah.
to finally get back together. Now, if memory serves me right, aren't you? You are almost in Canada.
Almost in Canada, yes. The only thing that separates me from Canada is the Superior Lake. So, yes, I'm very north of US, so just across here, the border, I would
You
say.
are very north, and this would be the perfect time to do some cold dips.
Yes.
Have you ever gone in this time of year?
No way, I'm Mexican. I'm used to have a very nice weather in the beach.
Warmer.
Yes, warm weather. So I'm never gonna do any cold.
Lake Superior is incredibly cold. I mean, it's probably in the 40s right now, maybe high
I would say
30s.
probably 30s at this
God,
point. Yes.
that's
So
incredible. That's incredible. So,
yeah.
so you're not going to be putting yourself through that. Well, I know this. I think it's about what, 3 weeks now. The Humanoid Summit, December 11th and 12th. Right, that's coming up, correct?
Yes. Well, a month, I would say. We are in
About a
November
month.
13th. So yes, still
Yeah.
a few weeks. Yes.
Well, this is what we wanted to talk about because you, being the VP of marketing for the summit, it's your responsibility to bring all the speakers in and help promote the Humanoid Summit. But before we get into that, personal question, when did robotics become your livelihood? Like, well, what point did this happen for you?
Well, I would say especially during college. I went into college for industrial engineer, and I wanted to find a ways to make the industry better. And I had the opportunity to work for a company that was doing robotics, and I started doing telemarketing for them. So it was no even as an engineer, right? I was part in the marketing side, but it was very exciting for me to start seeing that there was this need, that there was this opportunity to help companies and industries to turn into something more better outcomes, right? And not necessarily just use humans for that.
So how long? We're not going to date ourselves, but it's been your career for the most part.
Yep.
All
Yeah.
right.
So,
And robotics has really not been my career. My career has been in staffing. It started in executive search and direct hire, and now staffing. But what's interesting, all the plants and all the places that we staff, we are now surrounded by automation and robots. And so it's come into our industry in such a way that it's really kind of caught all of our attention. And that's why, I'm really podcasting more about it, because I just want people to understand how it's impacting companies and workforce and really what the future is going to be. And you are literally at the front of this, particularly from the humanoid standpoint. And so tell me, why are you excited? What is it about this conference particularly that is exciting for you?
Absolutely. Well, I think, like you mentioned, and as I was saying before, robotics and automation has been here for too many years, right? And I think now with the born of the humanoids, we're trying to realize what are the gap that they are closing, right? We have been having cobots, we have been having industrial robots, we have been robotics in the agriculture and other industries, but now they are the humanoids who are trying to replicate what humans do in different ways, right? And I think many industries are interested to closing the gap that right now we see in labor shortage, right? We see that also now humans don't want to be doing repetitive tasks, right? Logistics could be one of them, where some of them are even dangerous for humans, and the people is not willing to say, oh, I want to get a paycheck and risk my life or my health or being doing this boring. We can see even in the new generations, right? We can ask our children, do you want to be in a warehouse bringing boxes all day? Of course, people doesn't want to keep doing that. So I think robotics is also helping us to see that there are other ways to having interesting jobs. So it's the intersection of having innovation, helping companies with the shortage, making them a little more productive. And I think the impact of the robotics impacts in too many different areas, of course, as the company, but also in the side of the humans.
Yeah, the impact and the areas that they're going to be kind of working alongside us, I think it's going to be unlimited. And but this is really what I think is interesting. When you get into humanoid, you're looking at robots that have functionality and appearance like we do. But there are some modifications, right? Some of them might have, instead of legs, right, they could have wheels. They could have one arm, they could have two, they could have three. It depends on what the application is. And you said something kind of interesting to me, kind of off air, that what you have seen is an ecosystem developing for robotics. I want you to kind of explain what this is and how important and why it's necessary for robotic companies to be part of an ecosystem.
Absolutely. So, as any other company, you cannot do it alone, right? You need to have an ecosystem to support your growth. You start with an idea, and the idea of developing a hardware that also needs software is more complex than any other industries. So, you need to have different partners in order to supply chain, in order to implement the robot, in order to sell it, who is going to use it, how can you scale, who is going to produce it. So you need a lot of big partners around you, and you need to have that ecosystem. And at the same time, there are other even robotics industries that can be benefit from that ecosystem, because you have other parts like actuators, right? Sensors and other things that are being developed to support this specific industry, but they have also an effect in also helping others robotics as well.
Yeah, because when I think about the success that Tesla has had to this point with full self driving cars, each car is collecting data and sending that information back to a hub. And it's learning from that and then send that information back out. And I think of like a startup, it would be incredibly difficult for a startup robotics company to have access to all the data it needs for its humanoid to be fully functional. Like take it out of a box and put it in your house. Like there has to be this massive database, right, of learning. So from that point of view, where does that sort of intelligence, if you will, exist within the ecosystem, or is that still being developed? Where are we in that phase?
So I think again there are different partners that are trying to figure it out how to use all the data that is being collected, right? And the other day I was having this conversation with a few people who is trying to figure it out how this data can be in a marketplace to be accessible for others, and say, hey, I need to have access to data about construction, right? Because they might be very specific use case that is used for construction. Hey, I need to have data that is used for the health space. And I think that at some point, that is going to be some of the things that are going to be in some way valuable, all these data that we are collecting and that can be used for other use cases, and how robotics are going to have access to that. Because like you mentioned, right, you need to have a lot of data in order to train a model, in order to do something, right? We see sometimes we watch the videos like, oh, the robot is doing flip-ups and this and that, but a lot of the times they are being teleop, right? That means that somebody is controlling that robot, is not doing it
Right.
autonomously. In order to be autonomous, need to do it a lot of the times to learn and keep doing it in itself, right?
We would call that muscle memory.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, sensory memory. Yeah, it's interesting. Like a business concept is the pick and shovel play. Instead of working to create robots, say for a healthcare environment, you might provide the tools, the data, the information, so the healthcare robotic companies can rely on it to then use for their finished product. Because you can't be all things, right? Like if you're trying to develop a healthcare specific robot solution, on top of that, you're going to try to be a data company.
Yeah.
It's like which part of this puzzle do you want to try to solve? So I could see a future where you have a healthcare data platform, right? That, however, it's monetized, but then those healthcare robotic companies are partnered with that kind of universal database. Is that kind of what you're referencing?
Yeah, exactly. And again, you can even see it right now. The people that is doing the humanoids, they have some ecosystem that they have been creating, right? Where some of them build majority of the part, but the hands are being by other partner, right? One big example is Psionic has this partner with Aptronic. So Aptronic build majority of the part, but Psionic provide the hands because they have been mastering the dexterity in the hands, right? So why they are going to be spending a lot of money and resources in doing the perfect hand when this already there? And probably at some point it's going to be the same with the legs, which it has been so far a big problem for the humanoids. So maybe someone come and say, hey, I have a great part of feet, right, that you can use, have good dexterity, and don't need to figure it out, and they can do it better.
It's kind of like the automotive industry, where you have an assembler,
Yep.
that just pulls all the pieces and parts in. So tell us about the summit. What is it that you hope to accomplish? What do you think the attendees and the speakers want to achieve? What would they like to kind of get out of this? Are they trying to add more people to the ecosystem? Are they trying to attract investors? Maybe it's all of the above. What's the attraction at this point?
I think it's a little of everything, which make it a little exciting, because first of all, it's bringing all these innovators, right? Trying to let us know what they are doing, what they need, right? What is happening, or how, especially the ones who are a little ahead of the race, what they have done different, or what they are doing right now to keep going ahead. And then we have, of course, the new ones that are trying to accomplish, getting to the market. So it's a little of everything. It's an ecosystem. Again, the Humanoid Summit is bringing the people that is doing the best in this industry, the people that also wants to learn. We are bringing investors, of course, and the investors are also interested to see what is going on in the industry. We have a lot of people who is also coming from the industry, like healthcare, construction, logistics, and trying to say, hey, I'm looking for this kind of solutions to help me with this and that. So I'm trying to find what are the use cases that these companies are building. So it is a very interesting mix, because we have always making decisions, and we have leaders who are the CEOs or CTOs building these companies, and then of course different other areas. But I really enjoy every conversation there, because you see people is really interested in see how to help to keep growing this ecosystem, how they are going to be implementing this technology in their industries. So you see conversations that sometimes you are like, oh, I never thought about that use case. So I never thought this will happen, or these partnerships are happening.
Some of the best events that I've been to are when there's downtime or free time and the guests get together and just spontaneously start talking.
Yep.
And ideas, that's what you're talking about. It's not just the planned event where people are talking, it's the mixers, it's the dinners, and everyone gets together and all these ideas just kind of come together and it's like, bam, this
Yeah,
great new idea has come out, that you couldn't have planned it.
and the community is such a open community. Like last year, one of the things I remember, it was the CTO from Agility Robotics. He finished his talk, right? It was super interesting, and immediately as soon as he get out of the room, everybody started approaching him with questions, and he was super nicely open, answering questions and talking with people that I thought like, oh man, probably you will never have these kind of conversations in another place. And after that, we got a lot of feedback like, oh, thank you so much for this event, because I will never talk to this guy probably in another big
Right.
event, right? Like
You
it
don't
would
have
be
access to them. Yeah.
yeah. So
Access
I
to
think
time. Yeah.
yeah, it is what it make it this community and this ecosystem, right? Like make it like I wouldn't say that it's small at all, especially at this point, but make it very approachable.
Yeah. So the benefit obviously is that it's going to add some reliability into a company's workforce. And we've talked about this, and I think you've mentioned it too. There are just some jobs that are just dirty, dangerous, and mundane, and you want to try to replace that with a humanoid. So by the time this podcast comes out, though, I will have released another one. I just had a young lady on. She's the co-president. And in fact, I think she's connected with you. She's the co-president of UC Berkeley at the Robotics Combat Group. And they used to compete on the Discovery Channel's BattleBots. And she said now, you're talking about, workforce. So companies are now reaching in and trying to recruit these, early career, they're freshmen, juniors, sophomores, into really unique robotic roles. She was telling me there was one really kind of far out idea where it was going to be an underground robotic fight club. Have you ever heard of such a thing?
And I think that is another interesting. I have been reached out by too many people that they want to use the humanoid, for shows or for something like attraction, right?
Yeah,
Like
like entertainment. Like maybe that's a great idea. That's how you start the summit.
yes,
A battle bot.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, and yeah, I mean, like especially right now that is still like even though they are now more real than 10 years ago, right? So now I think we are gonna see them like in the street giving flyer for, hey, come to the opening of Dunkin Donuts. I can totally see that where somebody they say, oh, let's rent the humanoid for the weekend, and is giving flyers, right? Or
Um,
let's have a soccer game, right, with the humanoids, because it would be cool to see which humanoid stays longer, right? Yeah, like why no? We are
that's
curious
clever.
to see something different, right?
When I was telling my boss, I said, there's going to come a time when you're going to have a fleet of humanoids that you're going to deploy to your clients.
Yep.
I
Yep.
mean, why not? But particularly if you have they're trained and they tapped into that database, right, where they're very uniquely positioned and trained to manage something. I think that's really wild. Now you have another job. I don't know how many jobs you have. You're multi-talented, but you also are the CEO founder of Robo Success. And this also is kind of using your marketing skills. Tell us a little bit about what Robo Success is and the types of companies that you're working with and what you're trying to help them do.
Yes, well, Robo Success was born as I was helping a few companies, startups, right, that they were between pre-seed and seed stage, getting into the market, getting the first attraction. And I realized that there was this big need where these companies have a restriction on their budget, but at the same time, they need to demonstrate something, that they are doing something, right, to investors, to the market, trying to define the market product fit, and so on. And the budget is limited, and at the same time they need somebody to help them with the experience. Of course, they can afford sometimes a full-time person, and they don't need only sometimes marketing, they need sometimes a designer and things, to make things happening for their brand. So it's how Robo Success was born. I create a team that we help with everything in house for them, and we try to make it very budget friendly as they are starting with launching their products. So Robo Success help robotics company or high tech companies that are trying to raise money, and they need to be, doing their logo, doing their website, doing their social media to be attracting their market or attracting investors.
Yeah.
And trying to say, okay, you don't have to be hiring somebody full time. We can do it right in a smart portion of the time and help you faster, right? Than hiring someone that takes sometimes a few times on onboarding. And when they grow, they are ready to hire the team. We are happy that we succeed, and helping them to get to the next stage. It's not that I'm against of hiring person. It's just that sometimes they are that little stage where it's hard to commit to say I want a full time person, right? And
They
sometimes
need fractional. I mean,
correct,
there's a reason why there's fractional CEOs and CFOs, et cetera. And of course, fractional marketing and design.
correct. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Don't mention, not mention any company names. Are there some really wild concepts that you've heard? Can you share a few things that are almost like totally sci-fi almost? What do you think?
Well, I think in general, if we think right now, right, even my daughter is 10 years old, and sometimes, of course, she hears my calls and so on, and she's like, oh, mom, that sounds creepy or that sounds crazy. So, even right now, when we see that you can have a humanoid in your house, right, cleaning your house, being teleoped by another person, that's kind of like looks something that we couldn't believe it 3 years ago. Even 3 years ago, I would be say like, "Oh, I don't know if that's gonna happen." And now we just see the launch, right, of Neo, and people is already placing their orders, right, and they don't mind if somebody's gonna be teleoping the robot at their homes. I would say like the other day when I was at CES, having these chairs that they move on their own, right? I wouldn't think like who need a chair or a table that move on its own, but some people just like it, right? It's a new kind of furniture. Uh,
Now, I've not seen that. Now,
yeah,
I guess I could now when you talk about an aging population, I could see a chair would make total sense, right?
Yep.
Because someone who's wheelchair bound, wheelchairs are not comfortable. So if they're in their favorite chair and all of a sudden it walks down into the kitchen,
yeah.
time for dinner. Now, what was this? I haven't seen the Neo. I'll have to check that one out. So is that the teleop? Is that what this one is?
Yes, this comes from 1X, the company 1X. They just announced it, I think, last week. It was a big announcement, and they are like accepting orders already. They say, hey, we are going to be teleoperating the robots, right, the first few years. So the robot is taking data to learn, to be at
Just like
home.
what we were talking about earlier.
Correct.
It needs those repetitions. So they're
Yep.
going to have a teleopt humanoid robot in your home, and that's weird. Now that is a little weird that you got a driver behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But I understand why people will be excited to see, like, okay, I want to be the first adopter and see
Yeah,
what
early
is,
adopter.
right? Yeah. No, me personally, to be honest,
I want
I
to
would,
know your thoughts. What? Yeah.
yeah.
What are you going to do when these come out? Yay or nay?
I think once they are really autonomous, I might be thinking about it. Right now, of course, I have my RE robot that cleans my floor. I'm looking into the Matic vacuum. It looks very cool. They were at the Humanoid Summit last year, and I fell in love with it. So it's my next one in my list. I would love to have one for mowing my grass because I hate to do that. Also in my Christmas list, and I don't know if necessary a humanoid, to be honest, but they need to convince me. I like humanoids for, again, for entertainment, for the industry. I think they are
Not
great
sure
use
about the
cases.
inside the house yet.
But I don't know if in my house I would be that happy. But
I think you touched on something there, and that is a niche. Like you've got something that Roomba, that does the floors and this kind of stuff, and there are more advanced ones now. And if they could create something that was really sophisticated that can handle the grass, that would be interesting.
yep,
I've tried different things, and it's really hard to get the grass to look the way I like it. So it kind of depends on what you want. So that makes sense. Where if you could just kind of purchase or lease, right, unique, specific things that kind of fill in. The area that I think is totally uncharted and it would be a massive industry is for elderly people.
yep, yeah, absolutely. It's
And you
what
and
I
I have some experience with that,
yeah,
and I think having that kind of assistance in the home could just extend a person's comfort.
absolutely. And that's where I was going, right? Probably right now at my age, I don't see a humanoid in my house at this point, but I totally see it for my parents, right? When my parent was still alive, it was a lot of work for my mom to help him to do stuff. And my mom doesn't like to have other people in their house. But it's when I was thinking, well, a humanoid is not going to be another person, right? It's going to be really a tool to help. And it's exactly what I see the humanoids helping, especially with people who has high needs, right? It could be even sometimes you can have a child or a teenager that is, special needs, or that you really need a lot of support. And that's what I can see, that you really need to have somebody who can handle some of that work for you.
It
Uh,
is. It is work. I mean, it's a challenging situation for us because you love them, but it's an incredible amount of work.
yeah,
And the less work you have to put into someone, the more you can just enjoy and love and help and support. And when that work is always there, it's like a conflict.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And, especially again, I remember the last few months with my dad, right? Even like bringing water. It would be amazing if you have a robot that is bringing you water, right? Every time that person needs. Because, of course, especially at that time, my parents were living in a two-floor house. It was like going downstairs, go upstairs again, right? You just were doing something and then you could call again
You're
for
just
more.
there.
Yes. So, yeah, like having those kind of helps, absolutely, because you are already drained by being emotional attached with that person,
Yes.
seeing them sick. So, if you have that kind of help with those little tasks, it will mean a lot. So, it's
Yeah.
where I see the value in
Yeah,
the
I do too. I do too. I'm excited for it. Yeah, would I be an early adopter for a humanoid? I think at first I thought yes, I would definitely, because I would, now, assuming that it's not going to break things in your house, and that it knows how to function and get through the house. Because I think from a clean, obviously, just think from the cleaning, if it could cook, right, and then you could send it. I mean, I don't know. I started having lots of ideas like, what about security? Like, what if at night, it patrolled? What if it, like, it walk around your house, walk your property, look for, I mean, it could do all these things. Like, if you think of it, it can do it. But some people were very skeptical, and they were bothered by the concept of having robots be around guns. And I had never thought about that.
Yep.
And, we don't have a ton of time to get into that, but that was one of the reasons why this person said they don't want humanoids in their home because, if they have firearms somewhere. But I thought that's, I don't know. I don't know if he was being paranoid.
I don't know. Again, like I wouldn't. Well, first of all, I don't have firearms in my house, so I wouldn't think about that. I think the second, again, they learn from data, right? So if
Yeah.
you give them access to learn from using a firearm, they are gonna use it, right? At probably at some point, if you can train them to that. But if not, I think probably no.
Well, he was in Texas, so everyone in Texas has guns. So
Oh
you
yeah,
know that explains it.
yeah,
That explains it. You're
exactly.
so far north, you don't need guns. By the time they get to you, they're frozen.
Yes.
They've collapsed.
Yeah.
Well, so what's the best way for people to connect with you to figure out if they could either attend or be a part of the Humanoid Summit and or be part of your growing clientele with Robo Success?
LinkedIn, I'm always very active in LinkedIn as Jessica Chavez, Jessica with one S. You can find me, and that's the best way.
Well, I tell you, it was worth the wait to finally talk to you. And I really hope that after the summit, we'll get a chance to come back and kind of debrief and talk about the high points, what was learned, some of the new reveals. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it this December, but I got the next best thing. I got you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tony. This was amazing. I agree. I really enjoy it.
Oh, that's great. Well, stick around, everybody. We'll have details in the show notes. We'll have added videos. Hopefully, you have seen some fun videos as you've watched this podcast. And we'll have all the links to Jessica so you can reach out to her next time. We'll see you after the show.
Thank you.